So today I'm going to share with you my moderately crazy hack, my one weird trick that makes printer manufacturers absolutely hate me. No, not really. That one weird trick is usually a scam, but I assure you this hack is totally real. So let's get into it. So maybe I'm alone in this, but I've always had trouble when it came time to change my FEP sheets and getting it like it was when I bought it factory new. That is a nice, even, uniform tension around the edges. Invariably, I get some leakage along the corners or the edges somewhere, or just simply failed prints because the FEP sheet was too loose and the print decided they wanted to stick to the FEP instead of my build plate. And through careful observation, I realized that the issue was no fault of my own, but rather contingent on the design of the vat. My name's Yasu. I'm a costume and prop maker who pivoted in the middle of the pandemic to start Liquid Artifacts, a tabletop gaming accessories company that utilizes 12 resin printers to produce a variety of gaming miniatures and tokens for a wide variety of popular tabletop games and RPGs. So before we jump into today's video, I want to thank all my subscribers and new subscribers especially in helping me push to over 1,800 followers. That is absolutely brilliant, amazing. I never thought I'd make it this far. So thank you again so much. If you are a non-subscriber seeing this video for the first time or seeing some of my other videos, you should totally use this moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Little button right here below. And while you're at it, once you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, because then you can be notified of other new resin printing videos that I push out on a much more frequent basis. I'd really appreciate it if you can. If you can't, well, maybe next time. Anyways, the hack. To save some time, if you are a Untitled Photon or Mars owner, this hack probably won't be as useful for you because the vat actually utilizes many of the same elements that makes my hack work. However, if you own a Frozen, a PO Poly, a Wanhao, or a SainSmart resin printer, and probably quite a few other different brands because it is a prolific issue I'm noticing on a lot of vats, then this video is for you on how you can get nice, even, consistent FEP tensions. So you'll typically find in almost every resin printer that there are two components to a vat. You have the big metal part of the vat, the main body that the resin sits in and doesn't spill over. And then you have a metal gasket that screws and essentially sandwiches the FEP sheet between the vat and the metal gasket and tensions it down so that the FEP sheet is nice and tight and doesn't allow any resin to leak out. In most printer designs, including Frozen, Wanhao, SainSmart, etc., they're only using a single piece of metal to sandwich the sheet against the vat. Whereas the Untitled Photon and the Mars actually splits their gasket into two pieces of metal that you have to screw together with the FEP sheet sandwiched in between. So what that ends up doing is it actually pre-tensions the FEP sheet before you actually apply it to the main vat. Whereas the other designs, you're going right into it. And the problem with that is you can't, no matter what you do, what techniques, screwing them in a counterclockwise or a clockwise or some circular motion, it simply won't get a uniform tension, which is problematic because if it's not a uniform tension and it's loose someplace, well, that's an easy place for resin to leak out of and ultimately cause problems during your printing. So this is what I ended up coming up with. I know it looks shady, it looks weird, and it looks like it probably wouldn't work, but before you click off and go to another video, you should totally hear me out. This is what I did to maintain those awesome FEP tensions and get a perfect manufacturer level tight vat every single time. So I start by removing the damaged or old FEP sheet and thoroughly clean the vat with isopropyl alcohol or denatured alcohol. Once both the vat and the metal gasket is clean, I find a nice piece of flat and moderately rigid cardboard from really any shipping box. I take the clean vat and trace around it with a pen or a permanent marker to create an outline of the outside of the vat on the cardboard for our next step. I then take a box cutter or cutting blade to cut out the outline that we traced in the prior step. It doesn't have to be super precise. Feel free to also trim out the edges of the box so that there's about 1 to 2 inches of cardboard around the edges of the outline you cut. This allows you to easily reach the FEP sheet with your stapler. If it's too big, well, your stapler ain't going to reach. You will want to spread the FEP sheet over the cardboard you cut and use a stapler to tack down all the edges in a circular order. The FEP sheet doesn't have to be pulled too taut at this stage, as it will potentially over tighten when you actually install it in the next step. Now take your newly stapled FEP cardboard frame and put it over the vat frame and put the metal gasket over it so the FEP sheet is sandwiched between them. Start by poking a hole in the corner and putting the screw in. Don't tighten it all the way down yet, but rather get a comfortable amount of bite so it doesn't pop loose. Then do the same thing for the exact opposite corner. Then the other 2 corners. Then start inserting the screws in the center of each length of the vat, always working in a circular pattern to evenly apply tension. Once you have all the screws partially in, then slowly start tightening them in as evenly as you can while tapping on it with your finger periodically and see what kind of sound it makes. The stretched FEP, when tapped, should have a high pitch and sound like a traditional snare drum. Watch the edges of the vat and make sure you're not over tightening. If the FEP sheet starts turning white at any of the edges, that means you're over tightening and could tear the FEP if you choose to tighten any further from the strain. Keep in mind, you probably won't have to tighten all the way to get a workable tension to print. But you definitely want to make sure that no screws are poking above the bottom of the vat. And with that, you should have a uniformly tight FEP sheet that prints well without leaking at the edges. And that is my simple, if not sketchy sounding hack for getting perfect uniform FEP tensions and makes manufacturers hate me. I hope this print hack works out as well for you as it has for me and my own print farm. If you want to see more hacks, mods, and other resin printing tips and tricks, you should totally subscribe to this channel. And while you're at it, hit that notification bell and get notified every time I drop a new video, which is starting to happen at a much scarier pace than I have been running at the past. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and happy printing.